Welcome to another episode of Top Lines and Tails, the nation's favourite livestock podcast. And as always, we'd like to thank our partners and sponsors, Harbro, for their continued support. So this week on Top Lines and Tails, I've got a man I've been trying to speak to for a while there who's, he'll tell us exactly what he does there at Marks and Spencer's Agriculture there. Steve McLean, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
And Steve, I think originally from Aberdeen, I'll be right, Aberdeen fishing family?
Well, actually, it's an interesting one. So, a Peterhead fishing family, but brought up in Gairloch in Wester Ross, on the west coast of Scotland.
Okay.
So, no, actually, a bit of an interesting background. So, I am a fisherman's son who gets violently seasick and therefore had no interest in going to sea, and went to Ag College in Aberdeen. And then from there, got involved, or in the run-up to going to Ag College, had to do a pre-entry year at Alec and Francis Brown's farm just outside Edinburgh, Stonefield Hill. Got involved in Texels there. Then when I left college, went to the Texel flock, which was the Society's experimental flock down in Aberystwyth, before leaving that to go back north, Highlands and Islands Sheep Health Association, and then from there to the Aberdeenshire Lamb Group, which got amalgamated with Aberdeen and Northern Marts, the M&amp group, and then from there on to the Texel Society, and from there to M&S.
Okay, that sounds like a great career. I hadn't realised you were at a flock, to be fair, but that because of the great experimental sheep station that they run down there in Aberystwyth. So yeah, you've definitely got some grounding and some background, I guess, and eventually joined the Texels as breed director in 1995. I think their 21st anniversary at the time.
Yeah, that's right. Just the run up to the 21st anniversary. Jimmy Warnock was chair, Doug Nesbitt vice chair. Society was growing rapidly at that time. I suppose it had a few challenges, and as all organisations going through that kind of rapid growth do. And spent 13 years with the Society before moving on to M&S.
And would I be right in saying you said rapid growth? The Society was probably at that pivotal point, ready for change, and you might have just hit the straps just at the right time to try and maybe modernise the business a little bit.
Yeah, look, it was evolving. You know, you had a massive influx of new members. Prices were lifting. You got the dominance of the breed through the commercial flock. It had growing pains. I think there was great expectations on what was a very, very small group of individuals within the Society at the time, and you know, there's some well documented challenges that the Society came through, but. For me, it was a brilliant opportunity. The breed was and remains on fire. You had the commercial backing for the breed, but really importantly, you had an active group of members who wanted not just to further the interests of the Texel breed, but also who recognised that the Society was a great opportunity for socialising as well. And sometimes I think the social aspect of breed societies get completely overlooked. Farming is isolated. People need outlets from the kind of day-to-day activities of farming, and breed societies are a good route for that.
Wise words indeed. And going back to that, I think you started with new offices, as I said, and a fresh start. And data and figures will start to come into use a little bit more than they had been, or coming into being worthwhile. The data figures are starting to come into there. And did that sort of divide the breed a little bit, Steve, with the people going down that data route? And obviously, you've got a background in that yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if it divided the breed. I think it definitely caused a fair bit of discussion at the time. You know, you had people who were locked into sire referencing. You had people that were more locked into shoring type. But actually, I think again, I think it was the kind of natural evolution of, I suppose, both the technology and acceptance within the wider breed society, that figures were important and that looks were important from a shoring perspective, but the commercial man was looking for something that kind of justified the investment in what was more expensive rams than our competitive breeds at the time. So again, I think we had Elite Texel Sires, the Sire Reference Scheme, some fantastic individuals who were really pioneering at that time, and maybe they weren't producing sheep that would win the Highland Show or the Royal Welsh, but they certainly made a huge mark, and I think had a great impact on further expanding the breed's influence in the commercial sector.
Okay, and you talk about technology there. You were there also involved then when you developed the Basco, the beef and sheep company system there for recording, and again another pioneering job that you were right at the spearhead of.
Yeah, those were interesting times. I mean, the background to why I and at the time Keith Campbell as chairman felt so strongly around Basco. Um, and probably many people wouldn't have known. I mean, the Texel Society, although it had grown dramatically, the actual pedigree registration aspect of it was done at the Holston Frisian Society. And they were quite rightly looking at their own activities. And we were getting to be very big and needed to do something ourselves. So when we started looking at what the options for pedigree databases were, we were also aware that some competitive societies were going through the same kind of process. And whilst clearly societies are competitive with one another, and breeders are, as we all know, very competitive with one another within the breed, never mind between the breeds, there are some things that are just a administrative function, and a pedigree database is just a bit of electronic kit that manages records, issues certificates. You can do sale entries and all that kind of thing in. So it made sense at that time to collaborate because the individual society expenditure would have been colossal. And it was a way of getting a really good service at that time with best technology that was available at that time, and getting it in a cost-effective way. Now, clearly, that was for a period of time. The society's invested heavily in technology since then, and has a brilliant database now, which kind of blows Basco out of the water in relation to what it can do. But that's just the evolution of technology over time.
Sure. I mean, I was involved in a little bit that when you were setting that Basco up as well. And let's move on then, Steve. 2008. So you'd done your service there for a good length of time then, and Marks and Spencer's reared its head there. Were you headhunted to go to M&S, or was that something for you? Was the time right to move on?
Well, in truth, when I joined the textile side, my intention was only ever to be there for probably 6 or 7 years, and clearly we had foot and mouth in the middle of all that, and there was quite a lot of resetting need to be done with the society as we were dealing with those challenges. So 13 years was a long time for me. Interestingly, I've done a lot longer than that in M&S now, but I suppose when you've got the one role in a relatively small organization, which was the reality of the Texel Society, I was probably getting a bit bored, and in truth, I'm sure there's a lot of the members were getting a bit bored of me too. So the opportunity to move on when M&S approached me was really too good not to take. And since I joined M&S, I've been incredibly fortunate in how the business has looked after me and how I've been able to do different roles within it.
Well, let's move on to that M&S there, and yeah, as you said, you've been there quite a long time now. M&S, as we all know, for those overseas don't know, M&S, Marks and Spencer's, a supermarket chain, originally started out in the retail clothing sector, I believe, before they moved into the food side of it, and a very forward-thinking company, Steve, with a lot of goals there. So, and those goals still stand in place, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, 1884 was when M&S was created, the original penny bazaar. Moved on dramatically since then. We're now a business with just over 74,000 colleagues. We operate around the world, hugely iconic within the UK. And our reason for being is about delivering great quality food, great value, but special and different. And my role within M&S is to lead the specialist team who look after all the agriculture, aquaculture, and fishery sourcing around the globe. So I'm very privileged to do that. I've got a great bunch of guys that work with me, and we're very privileged to have great suppliers around the world. So I get to, I suppose, live the dream of being able to direct the procurement for a large business, but also not too far away from the ground, and that I still get to be able to go out and meet and visit suppliers. So yeah, really
Okay.
enjoy it.
Exactly, a dream job, as you say. And just go back to that goals, I suppose, with M&S there. Is it still about growth? Is it a company? How many stores do you run now? Are you still growing?
Yeah, I mean, we are massively in growth. The food business is doing extremely well. You know, we've just recently reported, so it's pretty well documented. Um, Food is really important. Special and different is really important. The expansion of stores is an ongoing program, but it's not just about the UK. You know, we've got a significant footprint outside the UK as well. So again, have 800 stores in the UK, about 1,200 stores totally around the world, and our direction of travel is to be more relevant to more customers in more parts of the world, and to do that in a profitable way, clearly, but also a way that allows us to reflect the great quality of British product and produce. And that's one of our major points of difference from our competitive set.
Okay, that sounds like a great mission. And so the company is an owned brand retailer, so you don't really everything of your goes through your stores is branded of your own product, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we have a saying that we're only as good as our last mistake. But and by that I mean that because everything that we put in our own packaging, made to our own recipes, sourced to our own standards, it means that we need to work very hard to make sure that we never disappoint the customer. And clearly, we've got some big drivers around that, making sure that we lead in animal welfare. Increasingly for us now, it's the opportunities to decarbonize supply chains. And we've got a lot of work going on, both in the UK and in overseas sourcing areas about how we do that in a sensible way. And also making sure that we're capturing the great work that is already going on many farms around farming in harmony with nature.
Well, and let's talk about those farms and your Select Farms project. You and I spoke probably 8 or 10 years ago about this, and I think it's grown significantly since then. That you have your own farms that are loyal to you, loyal suppliers to you, but you also look after them. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, it is. Actually, I hate calling them our farms because I think farmers are very proud individuals, and they farm for themselves, but they supply customers they want to supply. So, my role is to make sure that M&S is the customer of choice for the farmers who want to supply us. And in wanting to supply us, there is a reality that we do have quite difficult standards to meet. And that's not about being difficult for the sake of being difficult. It's about reflecting what our shareholders and our customers expect of us. So we do want to lead in animal welfare. We want to make sure that the farms that are supplying us are farming in harmony of nature, which the vast majority are already doing, but we want to dial up the comms around that. And also we need to make sure that we're looking after the people in the communities in which the product that we are buying comes from. M&S is quite a curious animal in terms of our shareholder mix. Our customers and our shareholders have great expectations on the brand, and making sure that the brand is doing the right thing is absolutely key. Number one, for making sure that we are more relevant to more customers, but also really importantly for making sure that we're delivering on our shareholder expectations.
Okay. And going back to those farmers, I remember you saying back then that you do have people that will go around and advise farms and educate them almost, I suppose, to what they need. And you're talking now about carbon and various other things there. So you run a service to those farmers, I believe.
Well, I mean, as part of our Select Farm program, we've a number of activities that go on. As I said at the beginning, I'm very fortunate to lead a great group of specialists who all basically come from a farming background or a fishing background, as the case may be. But they all get primary production, and they all get that most farmers get up every day to do their best. There's I don't know anybody I've never come across anybody that gets up with the intention of doing a bad job. So if you start with the basis that people want to do the best they can, and as long as what we're asking them to do fits in with the commercial realities of their farming operation, it is about, yes, sometimes coaching, sometimes mentoring, but trying to work together so that we can develop standards that we can be proud of, that our customers can be proud of, and hopefully that the farmers can be proud of. But we are in uncharted territory at the moment. There is a lot going on. The changes in inheritance tax, the changes in government support packages mean that farming confidence is at an all-time low, and we definitely recognise that. And are trying to do a lot to support the select farms that we rely on, the just over 9,500 select farms that we rely on in the UK.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And let's just talk a little bit about the food chain. The clarity of the food chain, I think, is something that's very much a prominent issue these days amongst everybody. The red tractor, etc., and the issues around product labeling. But it is about buying local, isn't it? And I think you guys again recognise that we need a clarity in that food chain.
Yeah, we've been long-term supporters of British farmers. The M&S model is about really making sure that we're capitalising what's available in the UK first and foremost. There are times that we have to step outside the UK. If you look at our produce business, we follow the sun to get the best quality. So quality is a massive driver, but loyalty to UK farming is also a big driver for us. There's not much animal protein nowadays comes outside the UK. Most of it is inside the UK. Aquaculture, fisheries, clearly very different, but that's all about the reality of sea temperature and quotas and great things like that. But terrestrial livestock production is over 95% UK based for Marks and Spencer.
Okay. And social influencer Gareth Wynne-Jones has been on this podcast, and Gareth's always got plenty to say, as I'm sure you know, but he says that farmers have an obligation to educate the public. All farmers have an obligation to educate the public on where their food comes from. Do you believe that the farmers themselves have a bigger role to play than maybe they're doing at the moment?
Listen, I think we've all got a role to play to try and shorten that link between the end consumer and the primary producer. There is a big gap. Consumers' perception of farming is unfortunately a long way from reality. From an M&S point of view, in recent years, you'll have seen our advert styles have changed dramatically, and we're much more about trying to tell the story of farming. The reality, however, is you're doing it at a very, very high level. Customers don't want to know the gory details of farming. It's probably the wrong terminology, but they don't want to know the detail of farming. They just want to be assured that it's done in as good a way as it can be. And UK farmers are extremely good at farming. I think we forget sometimes just how good UK farming is. And you got to remember, as an industry, UK farmers are trusted only second to nursing, and that is a phenomenal vote of confidence in the industry by the general public. The challenge we've got is around the profitability in the sector, the support that's needed to allow farmers invest and have confidence in the future, and of course also dealing with the thorny issues of succession within farming families.
Yeah, definitely. And you believe that's going in the right direction with regards to us educating the public? Are they starting to come more on board, or are we losing that?
No, I think we've got a big job to do. You started that question with, do I think farmers need to do more? I think we all need to do more. But we also need to do it in a way that we're not lecturing to the public. They want to be reassured about the product. We need to guide them around the realities of how farming takes place. But we also need to be mindful too that we need, as an industry, as a farming industry, and bear in mind as well as what I do with M&S, I farm also. Yes. But we also need to make sure that we're doing our bit to make sure that we're getting consumers on side. Sometimes some of the social media stuff you see is pretty divisive, and if we think that we're going to get consumers on side by lecturing at them or to them, I think we're a long way from reality.
Okay. Well, we'll drop that subject. I know there's plenty more we could say on that side of it. Last time I spoke to you, Steve, in a professional capacity anyway, was we were talking about Angus cattle, and that's been a while ago now. But Angus cattle, again, very much a cornerstone of Marks and Spencer's, the Aberdeen Angus breed, up there at the number one, and you guys still major in that.
Yeah, we were the first retailer that differentiated our beef offer with Aberdeen Angus. And Angus is still hugely important to us. We procure about 600 cattle a week, Angus cattle a week. We're at 2,500 other breed cattle, but about 600 Angus cattle a week. We've got some brilliant programs going on around, identifying the best genetics, finishing systems to produce really succulent, tender beef, and our customers are buying into it. So for us, those close partnerships with farmers that are aligned to delivering outstanding quality at great value is absolutely key.
And are you finding enough supply of Angus? Are you selective? I mean, is there enough supply? There's one or two companies, obviously, beside competitors, should I say, besides yourself, that are also taking in Angus beef. Is the Angus beef supply there good enough, and you're getting enough of it?
Yeah, we got some. Again, I think that's partly about the history of M&S. We've got really good long-term relationships with suppliers and beef producers, and we are in this for the long haul. We don't bid and div out. We've got suppliers who are now in third generation supplying us. So Angus really important. Great focus for us. Our numbers are increasing year on year, and it is the kind of center position on beef for our business.
I remember talking to one of the processors around about that time, not yourselves, I think, who was saying that the secret of getting the Angus beef brand profitable was about being able to sell the forequarter rather than just the more expensive cuts. And does that still apply? Can you sell forequarter? Can you sell Angus mince and the sort of over other breeds?
Yeah, I think, I mean, not just in Angus, I think whether it's beef, whether it's lamb, carcass balance is really important. It always amazes me when people walk into a store and they'll see the retail price of a steak or a roasting joint or whatever, and that immediately gets kind of added up back to what a carcass is coming to. I think the bit that people forget is that you've got huge processing loss in the middle, and for us and for many others, making sure that you're balancing those carcasses as best you can so that you're utilizing the most meat from the investment you're making in these animals is absolutely key. So in M&S, we're very fortunate. Not only do we have a really good fresh meat offer, but we've also got a very, very vibrant ready meal offer, and that gives us the ability to use the lower value cuts across a wider range of products, which our customers absolutely love and buy into.
And just go on to that suppliers a little bit. Of course, Scott Beef would be one of your main suppliers. That's all changed in the last 12 months, and the processes are getting fewer and fewer. How did that affect your supply chain?
Look, businesses change all the time. We're very loyal to our supply base. It hasn't created a vacuum as such. Another business came in and bought over the assets that were sold. But Scott Beef remains a supplier too. So they have other processing sites. Yeah, it's a really difficult one because the industry is shrinking, and you're getting I suppose fewer bigger players. That's happening around the globe, and it's a reality in the UK. But as long as the focus is on looking after the farms that are supplying them and understanding the profitability that needs to go with that to allow farmers to thrive, it will be what it will be.
Okay, let's just move on to the sheep side again, Steve, for a second. The Texel breed that you came from and the Texel flock that you still keep, which we might get a chance to have a chat about in a second or two. Do you still view the Texel as the number one supplier? I mean, why hasn't somebody, this is a question for you that you might not be able to answer, why hasn't somebody branded Texel lamb? I mean, they've branded Angus beef, they've branded Limousin beef in France. Why can't we brand Texel sheep?
Oh, very good question. I probably get asked that more than anything else, bearing in mind the role I'm in now and the role I came from to it. It's a really interesting one. I mean, the Texel breed is phenomenally good from a lean meat breed. The challenge around branding is it needs to mean something to somebody, and that somebody needs to be the customer. So Limousin beef in France, French people know where Limousin is. Aberdeen Angus beef in the UK, people get Aberdeen Angus. They may not actually realise it's a breed. They may think it's Angus from Aberdeen, but there is a kind of I suppose it's a provenance story around it. And unfortunately, even in my time at the Texel Society, when we started certified textile producers and we were looking to do that, there was zero customer insight that supported a brand name. And I think that's probably the challenge that goes on today. I think the breed remains really good, but there are some watch outs for it. If you go back to the foundation of the breed, it was about easy fleshing sheep. And I'm not sure we can say that about the Texel breed today. And I certainly know, talking to my procurement guys in our lamb supply base, that Texel lambs are getting increasingly difficult to finish. And that means that it's pushing the weights to the top end before you get finish on them. So we have a watch out. But the breed is very, very good at responding to challenges, and it's done that numerous times over the years. So there's always a bit of an ebb and a flow in these things. I'm sure that, and I know, in fact, that John and colleagues in the society, but also those that are advising on genetic improvement, are well aware of the need probably to continue tweaking the indices and the selections so that we don't go very much leaner than we are today.
I have to mention that the other sheep are available, and there's the Beltex breed, of course, is snapping at the heels a little bit to try and keep them honest when it comes down to slightly lighter carcasses, I guess. Couldn't comment.
I'll let you have your advert.
There you go. There you go. I'm totally impartial, Steve. Totally impartial. See, let's just talk about regional food, regional labeling. Then in France, you'll know yourself. I have a house in Aquitaine in France, and all I can get is Aquitaine beef. I can't get Limousin beef, and I drive 200 miles north. I can get Limousin beef and not Aquitaine beef or Charolais in the region. Regional products that we see through Europe, and I know you guys are moving into Europe. Do you? If you go into Herefordshire, do you put Hereford beef out there, or does Angus beef sort of one size fits all across the country? Are there regional difference in regions?
For M&S, we're very fixated about the best quality product that we can produce. So we don't do that kind of dibbing in and dibbing out depending on which part of the country you're in. I mean, we do supply beef on a regional basis. That's why we've got abattoirs and processors in Scotland, Wales, and the UK and Northern Ireland. So we do the kind of regional sourcing, but we're pretty stuck on the breeds that we have, and if you look at across our beef sector, we have Wagyu now. We've clearly got an organic range, we've got a Wagyu range, we've got our Aberdeen Angus range, and we've got our core beef range. And that allows us give a spread of value options for customers. It also allows us dial up the benefits of Angus and indeed Wagyu as a premium tier. But increasingly for us too, it's not just about the breed or where it's sourced, it's also about the processing that we do as well. So we're doing a lot around making sure that with the maturation and the dry aging that goes on delivers the very best eating experience that you can get on the high street. And that's how we differentiate our offer, rather than going into different counting breeds in different parts of the UK and the complexities and costs that comes with that type of procurement model.
Okay. You mentioned you were expanding into Europe, or expanding across the world, and I said last time I spoke you were expanding into Europe. There, how does that go? Because they do have that regional demand in some of those places there, and where's the growth areas for you?
Yeah, I mean, the growth areas for us are really Middle East and Hong Kong areas.
Okay.
It is that part of the world that we have a huge opportunity in at the moment. But also we're very significant in Republic of Ireland. We are looking to expand, but our kind of key focus is, the UK is our heartland, and the UK is where we have to get it absolutely right. We need to get it right everywhere that we operate. But the UK is our real focus.
And you mentioned earlier on about carbon there, and how you guys are obviously taking an interest in that. And what are your views on offsetting carbon credits? Is that something you get involved in?
We've got a very clear policy about meeting our net zero commitment by 2040 as a business. Reality within M&S Foods, more than 70% of our carbon footprint resides in the agri supply base and upstream from farming. So you've got a huge amount of carbon effectively comes into product that comes into farm that then comes into us. So we've got a big focus about where we can reduce carbon. Now, there's a massive difference between reducing carbon and offsetting carbon, and we're not looking at offsetting carbon at the moment at all. Our focus is working with our supply base about where are the opportunities to reduce it. In simple terms, that's looking at things around the maturation length of livestock on farms. If you can pull the slaughter date forward by 3 months, broadly speaking, that's a 10% reduction in carbon footprint on farm. And there are lots of emerging technologies now that are going to help farmers, but farming is going to struggle to be net zero on its own. But we want to get the carbon footprint as low as we possibly can before we even contemplate looking at offsetting.
Okay. And there have been a hot topic on this podcast over the last year or so that we need to also measure the carbon that the farms are taking in as well. Is that something you guys got an eye on?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, yeah. I think John Gilliland does a brilliant explanation of how effectively you should look at carbon as a balance sheet and not in a profit and loss basis. So, farms are massive stocks of carbon in the soil, in trees, in hedges, and we need to look at the kind of balance between what the farm is doing and how it's been farmed, but how those stocks are growing, as well as the enterprises that are produced. But it's still relatively early in the kind of carbon accounting rules, and some of the rules just don't work in agriculture's favour at the moment. But there's a kind of growing view that we just need to have an approach that demonstrate that farmers are doing the right thing, locking in carbon where they can, using technology to reduce it where and when they can. And innovation, I hope, will help us along the way over the next few years.
Okay. And another word that's obviously hot topic too is the biosecurity side of things, and that's something that is a challenge to all farming now. We're hearing Smolenberg, of course, we've got blue tongue coming in from Holland, we've got foot and mouth in Germany at the moment. There's the challenges are there all the time, and I mean, again, that must the blue tongue side of it must have an impact, I guess, on your supply chain.
Notifiable diseases are a real challenge for farmers, for retailers, I guess for society at large. Currently we've got African swine flu in the continent, foot and mouth in the continent. We've got avian influenza in the UK. We've got blue tongue in the UK. We've got Schwallenberg. The ones that give us the biggest challenge, I mean, clearly any that are impacting a farm is a disaster for the farmer, and our sympathies go to anybody that's caught out in that. But from a retail point of view, it's notifiable diseases that cause the issue. The notifiable diseases that have an impact in meat. So as much as blue tongue is an absolute pain for everybody in the UK at the moment, it's not actually having any impact at all in the world of retail. And our procurement policies haven't changed at all because clearly the licensing allows things to continue. But it is things like avian influenza, and if you were operating in the continent, African swine flu, and clearly FMD would be a disaster anywhere. That has the massive impact. Bizarrely, in my 16 years now at M&S, we've seen different diseases, thankfully not much in the ruminant sector, but certainly avian influenza come and go, and we're kind of getting used to dealing with it, but it is painful at the time.
Does that create a vacuum when we do get something like that? Or do you have to suddenly change direction to source elsewhere, or do you can you just tone down the marketing on those particular products?
We've got a business our size and the diversity of the supply base we've got because of our regional procurement. We can usually work around it, but livestock and disease is a reality. I think the bit that we're slowly getting our heads around is the impact of climate change on increasing the frequency of disease outbreak, and therefore how we respond to disease outbreak over time, both from the farming industry and us as buyers of product from the farming industry, I guess is going to be interesting and will evolve. In the kind of here and now, though, we set up our supply chains, and when we're looking at the shape of our supply chains, it is all with a risk mitigation lens in mind, as well as actually ensuring that we're sourcing the best quality that we can.
Another challenge we have, you recently posted a piece on inheritance tax, which you mentioned just now, and your support behind that, and the government's maybe on the wrong side of farmers at the moment. Is there anything we can do? You guys get behind that we can, just trying to turn the decision on that one a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate as a brand. We have ongoing dialogue with the farming unions, not just when there are issues of crisis, but on an ongoing basis. We're very aligned to the needs and views of the industry clearly, as well as the very direct feedback that I get from our select farms as well. So, M&S being supportive of farmers in issues such as inheritance tax and the need for sensible support packaging isn't new. I first voiced concern about the inheritance tax publicly from an M&S point of view about a week or 10 days after the budget. So it isn't new for us. We'll continue to work with industry and with the unions and to do our own lobbying to support that position with government.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure the farmers do very much appreciate that M&S are behind them. And just take your M&S hat off for a second. Then you said you farm and you run with your wife the Fordwell Texel flock there, and with your family. And how many ewes are you on with that?
The farm here in Ford was really, really important for Beck and I, for our kids Jack and Lauren, and for Beck's brother Ian and wife Alison and their family. We run now in a joint venture basis with our neighbouring dairy farm. We rear about 380 to 400 Angus cattle a year. And the pedigree Texel flock, Fordwell flock, sits here with, I think, 70 ewes in it. Now, I'm saying I think because I've got to give 100% credit to Beck. Beck's always been the person that's done the work with the Fordwell flock, and I suppose in recent years, just as we've taken over the farm here, my name may be associated with it, but it is Beck's baby, and she does a great job with it.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say so if you hadn't done there, Steve. But no, that's excellent to hear about that. And we see you out at the shows as well. You try and take a bit of busman's holiday, I suppose. And I certainly at the Royal Welsh Show exhibiting the sheep as well. And that still gets you in and out and about amongst the public too. And it must be difficult to take your hat off, take that M&S hat off when you are out there, maybe socialising.
No, I don't think it's difficult at all. I think I'm very fortunate. We've got, Ben and I have got a great bunch of farming friends. I mean, I have a huge number of friends from my days in the society, and I think I'm in the privileged position that my family are very good at keeping me very grounded. My wife is very good at keeping me grounded, and my kids are equally as good. But our friends are also great, and for me, being able to, take my day job hat off and just be normal and mix in with everybody is really great. But also make sure too that I do get what was going on the ground, and that helps shape our policies and our approaches to things when I have my day job hat back on.
Okay. Well, Steve, as I said, we've socialised a little bit with you when you've had that hat off there and at the shows there, and I hope we'll do that again. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. As I said, I've been wanting to get you on this podcast before, because I know that you're a key player in the livestock industry and the agricultural industry, and congratulations on the role that you hold within that industry.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, Steve, we'll catch up with you again soon. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, cheers, Andy. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to this week's Top Lines and Tails podcast. And as always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Harborough, for their continued support. And as we head closer to calving, have you considered how best to improve colostrum? Harborough have a unique product called Ruminant Green Gold, which is packed full of quality protein, omega-3 and seaweed to make sure those calves get up and go and suck quickly, and the colostrum that's there is full of goodness. You only get one chance at colostrum, so speak to Harborough about how you can make colostrum king this spring. Harborough, as you know, are suppliers and manufacturers of high-quality nutrition and offer free nutritional advice, but as well they offer a whole range of products there. So get down and have a word with Harborough and say thanks from us. And while you're there, on the internet there, why not look out our Top Lines and Tails Facebook group, and please join in, where you can find images and other information to back up this and previous episodes.